Hello, Susan Bean here, teaching Photoshop. And today we're going to continue where the last video left off. We were looking at different selection tools, and we looked at the Quick Select tool, which is one of my go-to selection tools. Here it is. Let's see. Quick Select. And we looked at it because it sees edges and colors, and you just move it around inside a shape and it starts selecting, and it finds the edges on its own, and you want to stay away from the edges so that it can do a good job and not get confused. And I realized after I demonstrated it in the last video that it has a behavior that might be frustrating, and I wanted to explain that behavior. So this is a very difficult selection I'm making because it's black on black, and the edges aren't that obvious and the color shifts aren't that obvious, and it's still doing a pretty good job. Now I'm going to preview my selection. And I've been doing that. I started showing you this in the last video by pressing the letter Q, which is called Quick Mask. And it gives me a little color preview of what is selected. And in the previous video, I showed you how to change that preview color if you need to. Blue is doing just a fine job for us right now. And I can see it's missed a little part of the brim here and a little part of the brim here and here. So I can make my brush smaller. I'm pressing on the bracket key next to the letter P, making the brush smaller. And oops, I'm in Quick Mask. I don't want to be selecting right now. So I'm going to deselect, Command or Control D, and I'm going to get out of Quick Mask. I've seen what I need to see. I see these little places that need fixing. And now I'm back to Quick Select tool, and I'm getting kind of close to the edge. And here's what I wanted to show you. Every once in a while, when you're using this wonderful tool, it does something really frustrating where you'll go along, you'll be doing fine, and then it just makes a big leap and selects a whole chunk that you didn't want to select, like that. Don't get impatient with it. Don't get frustrated. That's kind of, it's doing its best, and sometimes it gets confused. So all you have to do is hold down the Option key, Alt on a PC, and that turns it into a minus selection, a deselect. And then you kind of work your way over it, give it a second chance. And I find that sometimes I have to go back and forth a couple of times or a few times to get it to understand what I want. But that's part of the process. So if that happens to you, don't shriek. Let's see, try this little piece. And so what I'm saying is there's a little back and forth sometimes with this tool. If it still can't find what you want, or if it keeps jumping, then it's time to zoom in and use our friends, the lasso tools, and they can do a better job, even though it can be tedious. So right now I can use the polygonal lasso, and it's really exact, but it takes a long time and it's not as easy. I'll do a chunk here and then I won't bore you with the rest of it. There, so I added there. I can keep going and add here. Here I might even have to take away some. I might have to refine it and do a lot of work here. So I try not to use the lasso tools because they're tedious. But sometimes they do where no other tools, they go where no other tool can go. So if I was doing this for real, I would use the lasso tool to go around here and finish up the selection, or I could try this tool, the quick select tool, very close, very small, and see if I can get it to understand what I want. Oh, there's a jump. So that's a good example of what I wanted to show you there. So it's getting a little better each time I have to go in here. It's getting a little better. So you just have to be patient. It's doing something difficult. There. All right. So that finishes up the quick select tool. It was important to tell you about that little characteristic of it. And now we're going to move to an easier tool. The quick select tool is great. It does a lot of things, but there are other tools to look at. And one of those other tools is the magic wand tool. And let me zoom in here so you can see it. There it is, little magic wand with little sparklies. And magic wand, I'm going to go to a different picture. The magic wand will not be useful on this picture because the magic wand selects by color. And first of all, there's no color here, and there aren't even many different tones. So let's look at the magic wand tool. The magic wand selects by color, and it has two very important controls. Let's look way up here. The sample size, you're going to click on some pixels and tell the magic wand, please select other pixels that are this color. So your sample area can be very tiny, or there are different sample areas. It doesn't seem to make a huge difference. You can play with that on your own. Tolerance is very important. Tolerance is how many similar tones it picks. So if I select so that's tolerance. The other one is contiguous. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So if I pick tolerance, the default is 32. It doesn't seem to signify that much, it's just a default. And if I click on an orange in this picture, it jumps around and finds all these similar oranges. That's a tolerance of 32. So I can see it didn't really get the darker orange colors in the folds. So I'm going to change the tolerance. That will not change what I've already selected. It'll just get the tool ready for the next time I use it. So now I'm going to change it to 70. And I'm going to click in that same area, and it selects more of similar tones. And it's on plus, so I can even select some other similar tones and some other similar tones until pretty much all the orange in the picture is selected. And I can preview it by typing Q. And it did a pretty good job. But it also selected all this yellow. I can see little marching ants there. Even my preview isn't picking up on them. You see all those? So I have something that will remedy that. I wanted to select the orange pants. I didn't want to select all this stuff in the middle. So this is a really good time to go to the lasso tool, the regular lasso tool. And the regular lasso tool is really fast, but not very accurate. So it's perfect for lassoing this whole area that I do not want selected. I have to put it on minus, and I do that by holding the Alt key or the Option key on a Mac. And I just say, oops, oh, I seem to be on not the tool I thought. Here we go. Here's the lasso. All right, minus. And what I'm telling Photoshop is I don't want anything in this area selected. So it unselected that whole area. Meanwhile, I still have my orange areas selected. I'm going to deselect because I want to show you what that one other control means. The one that says contiguous. Right now it's not checked. So when I clicked on a color, it hopped around and selected that color anywhere in my document. I'm going to deselect. This time I'm going to click on contiguous. It's a fancy way of saying continuous. And I'm going to click on orange, and it just selected this one piece of orange, and I can add more by clicking some of the darker tones. And now I hit this one, so it's including that one. But it did not select the other orange areas. Contiguous means just stay in one area where the tones are touching each other, and that's close enough. Now I clicked in a shadow and it's selecting stuff I don't want. I'm going to undo that. So now if I wanted the others to be selected, I would have to uncheck contiguous. And again, that just gets it ready for the next time I use the tool. It doesn't do anything retrograde. And so now if I click on one, it selects all of the orange areas. And I still have to add a few more by clicking in more little orange places. But there. So if I wanted to select the yellows, I could click on a yellow. It selects the yellows. If I want to select on a blue, it's not going to select just this one blue area. It's going to select all the blue areas. It didn't do a great job. Again, this is another place where the lasso would be a great tool to, right now it's on plus, to swoop around and say, add all this whole area, I want this to be selected too. And it does a great job. So the lasso is really a wonderful tool if you don't need to be precise. And it literally lassos huge areas and says, add these. I want these to be selected too. Or in some cases, take away. I don't want these to be selected. So there you go. So that's the magic wand tool. Tolerance, the number in tolerance field tells it how much of that color, how many shades either side of that color to include. And contiguous tells it whether you want it to just do one contained area or to hop all over the picture and include other similar areas. All right, let's go to another picture here. And I'm going to deselect, Command D. All right, I want to select the orange in this picture. And the cones are orange, but there's also a line down here that's orange, and there's little bits of orange up here. So the magic wand might do a good job. Let's see what it does. The tolerance is at 70. The reason that it's at 70 is because that the last time I used the tool, that's what it was set at. So these tools remember their settings until you change them. So that can be great or it can be tragic. It's good to look at the settings before you use the tool, but we don't always remember to do that. At least I don't. All right, I have it on tolerance of 70. So it's going to select a lot of things that are close to orange. And that's not a problem here because there's orange and then the rest of it's kind of gray-blue. There's not a whole lot of other things that might confuse it. Do I want contiguous? Well, no, I don't. I want it to hop all over the place and find all the orange areas. So I do not want contiguous checked. So here we go. I'm going to click on this orange and it does a pretty good job, but it didn't get this orange here. And I'm going to click nope, and that went too far. I must have hit something blue and it's just went wild. So undo, Command or Control Z. Thank goodness for that. And maybe I'll change the tolerance to 90, and I'll click on that same orange. And that got it to select more down here and more up here. I can try 100. The maximum number of tolerance is 255. 255 is how many shades of color any picture has, and that means select all. You don't usually want to do that. So now I have 100. Let's see. It selected more up here and more of these. All right, I want to preview what this is selected. And so I'm going to type, the way I preview a selection is to type the letter Q. And it puts a color overlay where my selected areas are. It's not changing them purple. It's just using that color to show me what I have selected. And if I don't like purple, I can change the preview color. I showed you that in a previous video, and I'll probably show you that again at some point. But anyway, it's just a color that helps you visualize what in fact you have selected. Now, perhaps some of you are still asking, why am I going to all this trouble to select areas? What's the point of selecting areas? And so I have some examples of how you might use what you've selected. So for example, I might want to change the color of all the orange in the area. I might like this picture better if the orange is brighter, more in contrast to the blue. So with the orange selected, I go over to the layers panel, and at the bottom, there's that little menu that we've looked at before. I'll zoom in. It's the little one, it's the one in the middle there. It's half white, half black. That is a list of adjustment layers, a long list of all kinds of things that you can do. So let's zoom out for a minute. Right now, I want to make the color of the orange more intense. So I'm going to go down that list, and hue and saturation is what I'm going to choose. There are other things you could try. You could try vibrance, could try color balance. You could make them black and white. There are all kinds of little things on this list that you can play with. And by play, I really mean play. Try them and see what they do. That's a good way to learn this. So I'm trying hue and saturation. And the marching ants go away. I don't see them anymore. But if you look up in the layers panel, you'll see that it made a hue and saturation layer. And right next to the hue saturation layer is a mask. That's what that black rectangle is. And let's take a look at that mask more closely. I'm going to zoom out. And to look at a mask, if you really want to see the mask, you hold the Option key or the Alt on a PC and just click on the mask, and it shows you the mask. So I can see it got these little areas up here. It got the cones and its reflection. It didn't do a great job getting that line, but it got parts of it. And you can actually draw directly on a mask, but we'll wait and do that a little later. I could draw areas white that are, if I want them to show, I could draw areas white, or if I want to hide something, I could draw areas black, and I can actually edit the mask. All right, to get back to where we were, I'm just going to click on the mask up in the layers panel. There, oops. Here's the picture. And now when you make an adjustment layer like the hue and saturation layer or any of those on that list we saw, the controls for it are in this panel called properties. And if that's not there in your version of Photoshop, then my very first video showed you how to arrange your desktop to look this way. And you can go review that in see how the properties got here. Here's properties. And I can click, there's a little hand here that comes in very handy. And there. That's one of the ways that you use the controls for hue saturation. It's showing you to press down on a color and move left or right. That's what it's indicating. So if I zoom out, I'm going to try that. I'm going to click on that hand until it darkens. Move over to my picture, click on an orange, hold down, and now you see that same hand. And if I go this way, the orange gets more intense. If I go this way, it dulls it down, so I can control the saturation of the orange. In that same properties panel, there's a little rainbow slider that says hue. I could change the color of all the oranges. I could change them to yellows or greens or purples or blues. So that's something else that hue and saturation does. I can also change the lightness and darkness of the color I have selected, but I don't recommend you do that here. It's not the greatest place to make things lighter or darker. All right, so here, and then if I want a little preview, I have an on-off button because the hue saturation layer has its own little eyeball that toggles its visibility on and off. And I can see why I wanted to select the orange because I wanted to brighten it. All right, so that's the magic wand tool. I'm going to turn this off for a minute. I'm going to show you something very similar that I don't use very often, but it's, I think for teaching purposes, for learning purposes, it would be good to know about. There is a selection menu way up on top, and it says select, and there's some interesting things there. It helps you select things the way we've been doing with using tools. So there's select all, and that's a great shortcut to learn. It has the little shortcut for it right opposite it. In this case, it's Command A for all, and on a PC, it's Control A. That works in every single program you use. It works in Microsoft Word and Excel and PowerPoint. It works in video programs. It works on your desktop. Select All is one of those universal shortcuts to know. And one of the best reasons to use shortcuts is it saves wear and tear on your wrist. And if you use the computer a lot, you can really have wrist troubles. And I haven't had them in 30 years, and I think it's because I use so many shortcuts. So back to the select menu, end of lecture, back to the select menu. Select, deselect, Command D is deselect. There's reselect, color range. We're really here to visit color range for a minute. Color range is interesting. It's pretty much what we just did. It gives us a preview that we didn't ask for. We just kind of, all of a sudden, here it is. And if you look carefully, there are three little eyedroppers. Here they are, a regular eyedropper, a plus, and a minus. You can probably guess what those do. The regular eyedropper, I'm going to click on an area that I know was orange, and it selects a color range, similar range of colors. And here's my preview. I'm going to move it so we can see this middle stuff also. And then there's something called fuzziness. I think it's a very funny word that they've used. They used the word tolerance when we were using the magic wand tool, and fuzziness means the same thing. You can see if I turn it up, it includes more similar shades. If I turn it down, it includes fewer. Another way to include more shades is to go to the eyedroppers and use the plus eyedropper. And, oh, too much. So now I'm going to use the minus eyedropper. I'm clicking in areas that I know are not orange, and I don't want them to be included. So now this is pretty good. It's giving us pretty good selection. And you see under the preview, little preview box, we have a choice of seeing what's selected or seeing the actual image. I find this really useful to help visualize what you have selected. And right below that box, it says Selection Preview. This is something I wanted to show you because you'll see it again in other places. You have a choice of how it previews your selection. Right now we're looking at a grayscale preview, and you can see the things that are most selected are lighter, the things that are least selected are darker. We can see this on a black mat, or we can see it on a white mat, or we can see it in Quick Mask, which is something we've been using. So whatever is most helpful for you to visualize, that's the one you choose. And it depends on the picture. Some pictures need different kinds of previews. So you also have a choice to load and save. We'll talk about that later. You can actually, if you make very complicated selections, you can actually save them for later, but that makes your file size much bigger, and we don't need to do that yet. Localize color clusters. I checked that and just to see what it did, and I didn't like what it did, so I unchecked it. You can do the same. All right, so that is called color range. It was found in the select menu way up on top, but it also helps you to visualize this whole idea of selecting by color. Say okay, and there are the marching ants, and we can still use other tools to clean this up or add areas or take away areas, but that's the idea. All right, I'm going to deselect, and that is the magic wand tool. I don't use it as often as I used to because I find that the quick select tool usually does what I want it to do pretty quickly, because it's not only looking at color, it's looking at edges of shapes. And so I tend to prefer that. But every once in a while, there's a picture that just has a certain color that you want to select, and the magic wand will do a great job if you understand how it thinks. All right, so on to another selection challenge and another tool that for a long time, it's pretty new. When it first came out, I hated this tool because I didn't understand how it worked. And so just like you're doing, I went and watched a tutorial. And once I understood how it thought, I discovered that it's an amazing tool. Let's see, where's that picture that I want to use? Here it is. All right. So I have a picture of a group of people. It's my friend D-Boy and his crew, trying to look tough, and they're doing a dandy job. So I want to cut them out and change the background. The background's not really doing a whole lot for this picture. It doesn't have a lot to say, and it's distracting, and I don't like it. I want to concentrate on them. And in fact, I made a different picture. This is the final picture. I cut them out and changed the background and did some other stuff. So cutting them out, well, I could use the magic wand that we just looked at. That's not going to do a great job. There are tons of different colors. There's blue, there's black, there's white, there's beige. It's not, the magic wand is not the tool for this. The lasso, the regular lasso, is not precise enough. The polygonal lasso is very precise, but it would take me a lifetime to cut these guys out. So The one tool we haven't looked at yet, which is nestled in the same little box with the quick select and the magic wand, is called the object selection tool. And I'll zoom in and show you what it looks like, and then I'll zoom out again. There it is, object selection tool. All right, now I didn't used to understand this, and I would start to use it, and it was like, stop it, stop it. So, but look what it's doing. It's doing kind of an amazing job of isolating, even in this really complicated clump of people. It's actually doing a pretty good job isolating individuals. Kind of an amazing job. And I've done this with I have old family pictures, I've done it with that. It's amazing. So what you do with this tool, the way you use this, which I did not understand at first, is that you move it over till it highlights the what you're trying to select, and it works really well with people and obvious objects. That's why it's called the object selection tool. Once you isolate something that I want to select this whole group of people, but I can do it one person at a time. So I want to select him. Once it's pink, and you can change that preview color. Again, it's an easy thing to change. I'll show you how. Once it's isolated, you click, and it thinks for a minute, and there are marching ants. And then I can move on, and I can click this fellow. Now he's selected. What I find with this tool is when you highlight the pink, sometimes it doesn't look that accurate, but then when you click again and it makes the marching ants, it ends up being more accurate than the pink was. Click, I'm adding him. This is Liberty, D-Boy's son, who's all grown up now. And there's D-Boy himself. So I'm going along and I'm selecting, and it's just doing an amazing job. And now it's refusing to select this guy. And it's refusing to select this guy. And so instead of getting frustrated, what you do is you can come up to the controls for that tool, which is on this horizontal bar up here where all the controls always are. And you have a choice of lasso or rectangle. I'm going to choose lasso. You'll see both of them in a minute. I'm going to choose lasso. And what that means is if it's not selecting something that you want it to select, you can just very easily outline that thing, and it will think about it, and then it'll select them. I'm going to do this guy now. I want to make sure I get that little thing of hair. I'm not being accurate. I'm just quickly lassoing it, let go, and sure enough, it selected him. So let's do a preview. And then, by the way, it keeps doing this, and that's really annoying. So that's the time to go to the Move tool, type the letter V, Move, V, and now it will stop doing that. And now I have marching ants, but I want to preview what I have selected. The way you preview a selection is to type the letter Q, and it did a pretty good job. It did not get this white shirt, did not get this area in here, and it didn't get this leg and shoe down here, but it did kind of an amazing job, even on the hair here. So I can take the regular lasso tool and, well, I'm going to zoom in. Let's see. I can see that it missed this part of his sweatshirt, So I can take either the regular lasso tool, if my hand is feeling steady, or the polygonal lasso tool if I want to be super precise. And it's on add, and I just want to add that. And I want to add that. And I actually want to add all this area. Okay, that looks pretty good. Zoom out, Command 0, Control 0. So let's preview. I'm going to type the letter Q for quick mask. Okay, still didn't get that shoe and leg, didn't get the bottom of this shoe. But I can do that. Also, it didn't get these areas between the guys. It was so busy separating them. But I can use the regular lasso, it's on plus, and I can just say to it, see all this area in here? This should all be selected. See this area in here? This should all be selected. This should all be selected. And this, that should all be selected. They should all be selected. So that lasso tool that we were poo-pooing at the very beginning because it wasn't accurate can just really be a great tool for what it's good for, which is lassoing. Let's get these areas. All right. Now I'm going to zoom in and so those, I call these twinkles, those little sparkly bits of things that are selected that are tiny. It's good for cleaning up twinkles. Just surrounding things. All right, this can be selected. All right, so here I have to make a choice if I want that, I guess I want that shoes included. And that little bit of blue jean. My hand's pretty steady today. And this shoe. That bit of pants leg. There. All right, let's zoom out and let's see. Well, do we want that? I don't think we want that. So I'll hold the Option key to put it on minus. Okay, so let's see what we have selected. I'm going to type the letter Q for quick mask. And pretty good. There's a little bit of shoe that I missed there. And do I want that pants leg? I guess I do. Okay. All right. I don't know what that is, but I'm ignoring it because we're cutting it out. All right. Once you have things cut out that you want, is that hair? No. Then you can make a mask. And the way you do that, I already copied the layer because that's the first thing I do when I work on something. You click on the mask, the bottom of the layers panel. The mask is this little rectangle with a circle inside it. Oops, right next to effects. That's the mask. So I'm going to click on that. And because I had a selection, here's the mask. I'm going to see the mask. Oops. No, I'm going to see the mask. Hold the Option key. There's the mask. Pretty good. There's some little weird thing up here. One thing you should know is you can draw directly on a mask. I'm going to go to the paintbrush by typing the letter B. And I have black as my foreground swatch. It's going to paint with black. Opacity is 100%. And now that is masked off, won't show. This should be white. I don't want these lines between people. So I want my color now to be white. I type the letter X and it switches black and white. So I want white. And I can just paint and modify the mask that I've made to make it even more accurate. There. Okay. So that's my mask. And click back on the layer. And now if I put something behind them, if I put a layer underneath that layer, it will look like it's behind them. So I'm going to go to adjustment layer and I might try, I'll do a solid color for now. And I can pick the color. I'm not crazy about that color. I was just talking to someone about how much I don't like teal. If you do, then you'll make a teal layer, but not for me. All right, let's try red. Not pink, red. Come on. Okay. So we have a red layer behind them now. Here they are. And I cut them out. If I find that I don't like the way I cut it out, like his hair looks weird or something, I can always go back to the mask by holding the Option key or Alt key, clicking on the mask. Let's zoom in. Oops. And painting on the mask, making my brush smaller. Make my brush softer by holding the Shift key. Okay, click on the, well, it's still looking weird. Let's see. Now I have the mask selected over in the layers panel and I'm just painting on the mask. I can tell it's selected because it has the little white frames on its corners. That means I'm painting on the mask. If I click on the layer, I'd be painting white directly on the layer and that wouldn't be good. So I have to make sure that I see those little white corners. All right, click on the mask and zoom out. And now I can just paint what I didn't want selected. Yeah, that looks a little better. What's this? That's the thing about masks. If you go to the trouble to select something and then you make a mask, it's so easy to go back and edit. And later you see little things. And if you had actually erased, it would be too late. You couldn't fix those things. I'm seeing this breakthrough that should be white. So the red doesn't show through. So wherever I paint with white, the guys show. And wherever I paint with black, the background shows. And if I can't remember, I just try one and then undo and try the opposite. It's not, you don't have to get it right the first time. You can always edit, you can always change your mind. I'm seeing a little color breakthrough here, and so I'm painting it with white. There. So masks are the key to all control in Photoshop. I meant to paint that with black, but I painted it with white, so I just switched colors. This needs to be white, so type X. And I don't want the red to show through here. So I can fuss, I'll stop fussing now. But it's a good way to show you that masks are really important. Selecting is really important for being able to do what you want to do in Photoshop. Okay, his head needs major adjustments, but I'll save those for my own time. Yeah. All right, up his ear. Even if you preview, there are usually some little places you didn't see. It's hard to see that much detail. And so you can fix those things. There's some red showing through. The shoulder should be there. All right. So another thing that, because they're cut out, another thing I can do is when you cut things out, they kind of look like they're floating on this red area. And if they were actually casting a shadow, then they would look less like they're floating. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm selecting the color layer, and now if I make a new layer, it'll go directly on top of that layer. I'm making a new blank layer. I'm clicking on the little icon next to the trash, and it's the new layer icon, and it's called layer 1, and I'm going to name it shadow. And I'm going to take a brush and go to the default colors by typing the letter D for default. It makes my swatch colors black and white. I'm going to paint with black. I'm going to make my brush bigger by typing on the bracket key, the right bracket key. And I'm going to make sure my brush is soft by holding the shift key and typing on the left bracket key. It makes it smaller usually, but if you hold the shift key, it makes your brush softer. All right, so the guys are on the layer above, so their layer is on top of everything. This layer is the shadow layer, and then it's on top of the red layer. I'm just going to paint. And I'm not painting on top of the guys because their layer is on top of this layer. I am painting on top of the red because this layer is on top, the shadow layer is on top of the red layer. And I'm not being super precise, I'm just kind of coming along here. And now I can blur that layer and I can turn down its opacity. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And I get a little dialog box. Preview that I can't see because it's zoomed in so much, but I can use a slider. So that's not blurred at all. There, all right. Now, if I turn the shadow layer on and off, you'll see it. They look a little more grounded. If it's too much, simple, I can just turn down the opacity on that layer. I can go up here, I can type a number, let's see. All right, so now it's a little more subtle. It just gives them a little grounding. All right, So that's the object select tool. Let's go back to it for a minute. You roll over things. Let's go to their layer. You click, it selects that thing. It's on add. You click, you can add another. When it doesn't add the thing you want, you use it like the lasso tool. You click and just outline either with a rectangle. You can, where it says lasso way up here, and I can change that to rectangle. You can just rectangle around someone and it will include them. I'm going to deselect. And that is how you use the object select tool. There's another option there that's called select subject and select and mask. We'll look at those in the next video. But for now, that is all the wonderful selection tools at your fingertips. All right. See you on the next video, I hope. If you have questions or comments, feel free to leave them. I will see them and I will answer you. Okay.